What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of She or They with Kittens. I'm Kittens, and today I've got FIGHTMASTER on with me. This episode was so fun, honestly. Like, we could have kept going. I wanted to keep going, but I can't keep people on all day, unfortunately. But we had such a great conversation. I'm so psyched for you to check this episode out. But a little bit of background on ER. They are a non-binary actor, writer, and musician, and they actually just released a single called Bad Man, which is so fire. I was really relieved because, like, if it wasn't good, I was gonna have to lie and be like, "Oh my god, I love it." But no, it's like it's genuinely good. And they have played a few very impactful characters in the past on very important television shows that we are not going to mention because SAG and the WGA, which they are the Writers Guild of America, the Screen Actors Guild, so all the actors and whatnot, they are all on strike right now because if you have somehow not heard about this and been living under a rock, the major production studios have just been mad greedy. The streamers have been mad greedy, and they are not paying people even like close to a livable wage. I know when you think of somebody who works in entertainment, you think like, oh, they're rich and killing it. No, most of these people are not even making $25,000 a year. They're not even able to get health insurance, which is really, really messed up. So they're all on strike right now, which is why we are not going to give any of these shows that has been on any extra promotion by mentioning them. But if you know, you know, because their character has actually really made an important impact on the non-binary community and the queer community, and just as far as representation goes, made a massive impact. And I don't think that can be overstated, honestly. Being a non-binary character in a very successful television show, it's been around for a long time, and that has that widespread of a reach and audience, like, that's a whole other level of being able to help people learn and help people feel seen. And yeah, their presence in entertainment as far as music and acting and writing and all the angles go is just really super impactful. So I'm psyched to get into that. We're going to talk about, obviously, the impact. We go on a kind of long rant about women's and gender studies and queer theory stuff because we both studied that in college. That's my shit, and I don't get to talk about it to that many people that often, you know? So we talk about that, and also women's sports, WNBA, and all the intersections of identities that go on. Like, all the elements of identity are heavily represented within women's sports. So we really dig into that, which is cool. And obviously we talk about music, which their background of music is frankly fucking impressive. So I'm really psyched to hear more of their music. I'm really psyched for you to hear this episode today. So let's just shimmy cartwheel right into it with FIGHTMASTER. Hi, so glad to have you here.
I am so excited to be here. I'm a big fan of your work, Dua
Oh my
Lipa.
God. Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you. Me, Dua Lipa, as well.
Both Dua Lipas. Um, before we get into everything, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and your name, pronouns, what you do, all that good jazz?
My name is FIGHTMASTER. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a musician.
Yay. And your song Bad Man that just came out, honestly, fire, love. I
Thank
didn't know
you.
what to expect. I actually didn't know you had a like past with music. So I was like, oh shit, okay, this is actually good, thank God.
The amount of people that reached out to me, like, that said basically the same thing, where they were like, listen, not to be rude, but thank
Yeah.
God it was good. I was like, damn.
Because they really would have had, everyone would have had to fake it and be like, wow, it's really good.
Oh,
Love
good for
it.
you, kiddo. But I completely understand, because I've had friends send me like manuscripts before to read,
Mhm.
and you are like, in the art world, you are crossing your fingers so
Yeah.
hard all the time that the stuff people send you before it comes out is good, because it's so hard to lie about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So So thank you for listening. I love that song. It's so much fun to play. We're playing it live soon. We've got more singles coming out, and I'm stoked about all of them. But Badman is kind of my baby.
Yeah,
So
it's awesome. I mean, like the beginning, the opening bass line is very like Joy Division-y, which I was like, okay, I
ooh
like
yeah.
this. Yeah. But were there any other like musical inspirations sound wise?
You know, I was on a real kind of kick when I was recording Badman, where I was listening to a lot of Fleetwood Mac, but I was also listening to a lot of like Pretenders and Beach Boys
Ooh,
actually.
interesting.
And for because I had watched this documentary about the Beach Boys and how people are still studying their
Oh
harmonies, and
wow.
when I went into Badman, I wanted to get that kind of like grungy, like Runaways
Mm,
sound, but I wanted it to have that really fun kind of like mid 70s, early 80s vibe of
yeah,
like a Fleetwood single. And I wanted it to have these walls of vocals like I think the Beach Boys did almost better than anybody. So those were three of the bangers that I was listening to when I
yeah.
was doing
I
that.
mean, killed it, honestly. What up? So
Thank you.
is it you and like other people, like a band, or are you doing the whole thing? Like what's the breakdown?
I play
Uh-huh.
everything, but the drums. And then I have a wonderful producer, Riley Gear, and he'll come in. We play basically all the same instruments. So sometimes we'll trade off and he'll have something great in mind for the bass or I'll have something in mind for the synth, but he's always in the pocket on the
Mhm.
drums and I'm messing around on everything else.
Nice. That's so fun. How long have you been making music? I know you have another project called Twin. Is that still a thing or was that an old thing?
Well, that was so Twin was my first band, and we had a great run. We got a song put on a pretty big TV
Mhm,
show that I will cannot mention because of the
mhm,
strike. And I think that Twin was such a great first like music project for me because it helped me understand like how to manage time in the studio and the way that I like things to sound, and it gave me a lot of access to like technical
mhm,
language that I didn't have
mhm,
before. But this project, Fightmaster, is like it's really mine. It's kind of all mine in a way that is really refreshing to me.
mm. What do you like? What's the best part of having this different outlet? Because you do other things that we can't delve into. We can say you act. We can say you're an actor, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah.
Yes.
Obviously, we're in the middle of a nice big strike here. So can't get into all the things, but you do act. And so having this other outlet, I'm sure is really, I don't know, just helpful to have right now.
It's huge. Well, I'm an actor and a writer. And so I'm actually in both of the unions that are striking right now. And I think that we are just in a new era of artists where a lot of people that I know are multi hyphenates.
Mhm.
And so a lot of us have been able to um, pivot to the other things that we're good at and enjoy doing. But, acting and writing are also they're team sports. I
Right.
do believe that. And music is a team sport in some ways, but it's a real return to self in the way that writing for someone else is not, or acting lines that aren't yours. When you're singing a song that you've written, it's so personal.
Mhm.
And I think keeping in touch with the personal actually gives you um, broader access to other people's emotions. So when you go back in and you write on a TV show or you act, if you know you really well, you're better at writing for other people. You're better at becoming other people
Mm.
because you're locked into self.
Right, right. That makes so much sense. I think right now more than ever, I'm noticing all the multi hyphenate action happening,
Hmm.
and especially with music being so so much of a solo sport for the most part, even if you are working with producers and bandmates and whatnot. I was thinking about this. I was seeing a bunch of stuff on Twitter of everybody in the is it even called Twitter anymore? What have we X? What I don't know. Whatever the
You're
fuck Elon
calling it
decided
what the fuck ever,
today.
guy.
Um, but yeah, everyone was talking in the music industry about we need to strike, we need to strike, we need to do the same thing because like the music industry has zero union, there is nothing, there is no regulation, and everyone is suffering in different ways. But it's so interesting because nobody feels like it's actually ever gonna get there because there isn't much team action happening. So there
Mhm.
isn't a way to really get everyone together. There's not a bunch of people working on a project in the same way that they would work on, a show or a movie. You maybe have like a few people working on a song or an album, and everyone's just kind of looking out for themselves because it is so much more personal, which is really interesting.
I think you're totally right, and I think the there's not an integrity framework, if that, you know, there's so when you are writing on a show or you're working on a, I'm gonna say group project. When you're working on a group project, um, you can't write the show by yourself. I mean, I'm sure some people do, but most of the time you can't.
Mhm.
You're with a team. And team, just like actual team sports, there is an integrity framework of I'm going to do the best for you that I can. I'm going to protect the team. I'm not a lone wolf. And you have that in an ensemble piece too, like for any of the shows that you might be on. But you're right. For music, there is a front person, and then there's an entire team of people making money off that front
Right.
person. Everybody's fighting for
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
that's the truly the music industry is like my new wild west because I've spent the least amount of time solo in that industry,
Mhm.
and that I'm really learning a lot really fast.
Yeah, it's it's fucking wild.
Yeah.
I'm sure though it feels maybe a little bit more free to be able to do something without having to have input from a million other people, or to be able to just go and make something and put all the parts together yourself and express yourself versus, okay, I
Mhm.
have this idea for a show or a movie and now we have to like everyone has to write and we have to find someone to produce it and then we have to find, all these extra things. You can just literally sit down and make something by yourself.
Yeah, that part's wonderful. I mean, the part of it that's really lovely is that music is based on your aesthetic sense,
Mhm.
and so it's from the way that the song sounds to the way that the artwork looks to the things that I wear on stage. Like I'm picking all of those
Mhm.
things. You know what I mean? And the musicians that I put behind me for live shows, I picked them out, you know? So all of it is it's really getting me in touch v- very hardcore with my own aesthetic sense. And the cool part about working on, I'm going to keep saying group sports, is that you can bring aspects of yourself to that room
Mhm.
or to that, stage or, whatever. But at the end of the day, you are serving a higher aesthetic.
Mhm.
And that can be really cool because you're like, you get to lose yourself inside of a world.
Mhm.
But with music, you're constantly having to find
Right,
yourself
you're creating your
because
own world over and over.
yeah, and if you don't have an aesthetic, people notice that too.
Yeah. Yeah, when you don't have a kind of clear vision or creative direction, it's just like, who is this person? They clearly don't know
Uh-huh.
themselves. And when you see, I mean, there's so many artists that unfortunately we see who are just kind of like when they're trying to be something that they're not, you can just like
Mhm.
smell it and it feels so
Mhm.
wrong. Feels like you're like seeing a dog walking on its hind legs and you're like, what the fuck is happening here? Please stop. Like, but
Actually, I do think they should walk on their hind
I
legs. I
wish
think
it
it would
is.
be much more decent.
It'd be much easier to give them hugs, but we can't have
That's
everything.
that's huge, yeah.
We can't have everything. You keep talking about team sports though, and I mean, for anyone that hasn't met you or knows this, you are like fucking tall as hell. Like you're how tall are you? I was like, hey, I'm short, so whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, I we had just for the audience, we had been introduced to each other by our mutual friend Justine, who works at Together. And Together is a great company in the sports world. And so you DJ'd Together's event at the WNBA All-Star
Mhm.
game in Vegas, and I was out there just truly to be a party boy. I think we bonded over the fact that inside of this casino, we had somehow found the only room that didn't have a ceiling, but we didn't know
Yeah.
about it. Vegas is such a mind fuck. I can't tell if I'm gonna go back every weekend or if I'm never gonna go there again.
It really is wild because they specifically make it so you don't know what time of day it is either, like inside the casinos. The lighting, the temperature, it's like it could be 4 a.m., it could be 1 in the afternoon, like, you have no idea. So it's so easy to get just, like, fully swept
It
up.
tortured.
Yeah,
Tortured, yeah, and, like, walking around kind of it to me, it feels like a little bit of, like, a zombie world
yeah,
because, we're, like, at the WNBA All-Star event, I, like, have so many friends from different worlds there, and we're, walking through the casino where we're staying, and I'm seeing friends at 4 o'clock in the morning still gambling, and I'm like, "I didn't even know you gambled," and they're like, "I didn't even know I
oh my
gambled," and then
god,
they're kinda, like, stumbling off, and you're like,
fuck.
"Get out of here, man. Go
Please go
home.
sleep.
Have some water."
And then you run into a random, like, dental convention. That
Oof,
was
yeah.
that I did a deep dive on that. So I know we ran into this group of people wearing all white, so that's what we're talking about here. They were all wearing all white, and I was like, "I need to know. I need to know what is happening here." And it was like an association of Invisalign dentists specifically having a party.
I love that they were wearing
I
all white. They were
know.
like, "White is the color of teeth. That's what we're gonna wear."
That was their, like, party fit. They're like, "We're so edgy. We're having a fucking party out in Las Vegas with our dental buddies." I don't know. I did a deep dive on it. I found their Instagram. I was looking at the posts. It was a whole thing.
Do you follow? Did you
I
follow?
didn't. I'm just a silent lurker. But they had bought out, like, tables and, like, big banner things at the Encore Beach Club. So they were, like, raging, like, the DJ's going and it says, like, American Association of fucking whatever, and they're just, like, popping, like, it was a thing. It was I
Incredible.
love
There's
that.
so many worlds that we don't know about.
I know, I'm like, they look forward to
That's
that.
somebody's entire
They
existence.
look
That's
forward to that all
awesome.
year. Like, they look forward to that all year.
They're, like, making jokes in the office, like, in January, being like, "We'll see Craig in Vegas."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
wow.
I
Well, good for them. Maybe next year we'll be invited.
hopefully I mean, we can just show up wearing white because I'm sure that'll be a thing again.
Yeah, it'll be really cool.
Yeah.
But we met at the WNBA All-Star event because I am obsessed with women's basketball, and I used to play
Okay,
basketball,
that's
but
what I
I
was
also played
gonna ask.
college volleyball.
Okay. I was like, yeah,
Yes.
there's something else here. I feel like you're not just like a fanboy. Like there's
No, I'm in it. I played small time college volleyball, and uh I coached volleyball,
yeah.
and I played basketball for a long time. So I'm just a little bit of a slut for
Yeah.
sports. And I love being around all the tall
Yeah.
dykes. Like, it feels so magical. First of all, a lot of them are taller than me, which is an experience I never get. I am 6'1". I never get to be a little bitch. And
You're
I'm
like, it
in
feels
this
so
room, like,
small.
staring up. Yes! I mean, I fully was like, maybe it's she, her for the evening. Like, I was like in heaven, in like the big, like, it truly feels like you're in a forest.
Mhm.
It's so
That's my
wonderful.
full-time
Like,
life. I'm 5'4". Everybody's taller than me. Welcome to my world.
it's wonderful. I don't know why you would not be so stoked about that every day. You get to feel like baby everywhere you
I don't
go.
like feeling like baby. It's not fun. It's overrated.
See, we just need to switch roles for a day. This is what's
Do
not
we
it's not
Freaky
13
Friday
going on 30.
this?
What's that one word?
Do
Yeah, well, Freaky Friday it. That's it.
I feel like that's the move. So you love basketball, you love sports.
Mhm. Well, I'm mostly just obsessed with I mean, I like all sports, but I think women's sports are more interesting, and I think that they're more interesting because of the political aspect of it.
Mhm.
Like,
How so?
when we talk about the WNBA, I've talked about this a lot, but the WNBA is 80% black,
Mhm.
and it's so many queer people, and we've got non-binary players in the WNBA, and we have working mothers and working parents in the
Mhm.
WNBA. And so we actually have this massive cross section of all of the most underpaid people
Right.
in society.
Mm.
Black women, black trans people,
Right.
trans and non-binary people, working moms.
Mm.
We have them all playing at an incredible like they're great.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great game to
Most
watch. And
elite
so
level of sports.
it is. It's an elite level of sports, and it's thrilling to watch. And all of these arguments that are just starting to sound so ridiculous because when you go and see women's sports, you don't realize how big these folks
Mm.
are. Like, and so we've been told a lot of rumors or a lot of bullshit about how women's sports are not as fun because the women are small, and because there's no impact, and It's not as dynamic, and you know what I mean? All of this stuff that basically just is like this
Patriarchy.
message that women,
Just
it's
yeah.
patriarchy. And it's this weird thing about women not being violent,
Mhm.
which is like so funny because I would argue that women and queer people have a better understanding of the actual like meaning of
Yeah.
violence than men ever
Yeah.
will, because we experience it.
Yeah.
And the all-star game is like a fun one to go to because you're watching Brittany Griner go
Mhm.
out there, and here's this 6'9" human being that for fun in the middle of the game picks up another player and like pretends to spank her on the butt. And then I think it was Kelsey Plum, and then like sends her off into the crowd, and the whole audience is like, yay! You're like, what is more like brutal than this like 6'9" person who's been dunking the whole game just being like wallop on the butt? Like it's like such a fun, dynamic, it's an awesome
Mhm.
environment, and the crowd is awesome, and the crowd looks different than men's sports games. And if we can go, and if we can support the leagues, and if we can give them the audience that they
Mhm.
deserve, we're not pandering in any way. Like we're not talking down to them. They're good enough to
Yeah.
watch. They just need an audience. So we go, and when we buy more tickets, they get paid better, and when we buy their jerseys, they get paid more. And the reason Brittany Griner disappeared from us in the first place is because she had to go overseas. Like, let's get our people paid more
Mhm.
so they can stay here and play better games
And then we
and be
get to be
safer and be
entertained
happier.
in this like at the same time. So everybody
Exactly.
really wins.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's really interesting. You were bringing up all the just intersections of oppressed, marginalized groups that are dominating that sport right now. I
Hmm.
saw or I've heard you talking on a podcast that you studied women's and gender studies in college, which samesies and that shit.
Really?
Oh yeah, but I mean that was like over 10 years ago. I'm old. But honestly,
Me
like
too.
okay.
I think I'm old too. I had to think about the math. I'm old too.
Old enough for it to be a while ago. But it was so
That I had to think.
it was so interesting because you said taking that class helped you realize that you were queer and helped you kind of come to terms with, you know,
Hmm.
your identity and whatnot, which I'm like, it took you until college. That's really interesting. But um, you know, we're late bloomers sometimes. I think that's late bloomer, but it's really interesting because I mean, I came out when I was 15, so it was like old news, but I had so many moments in my classes where I just like felt my brain shifting, like I felt the unlearning happening and I felt the perspective shift. And I
Hmm.
think that's so valuable and important to have because for a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of people having that experience of learning new language and kind of removing the really rigid views and narratives that we have from what society's taught us, removing them, it really gives you so much freedom to figure out who the fuck you are and have a chance to
Hmm.
be happy in life. So what was that like for you when you first were like, "Oh my gosh, what is the stuff I'm learning? What's happening here?"
Well, the term that I would use for it now is, I think, decolonizing your brain.
That's a good term.
And so I grew up in Ohio in the 90s, and I've talked about this, but we didn't see gay people, and we didn't talk to about gay people, and there weren't gay clubs, and if they were, we didn't see them. They were in parts of town that we weren't even supposed to go to. You know what I mean? And so I actually had a girlfriend at 14,
Mhm.
and we were having sex, but we didn't know we were having sex.
What do you
I know. It sounds so confusing to people, but because we didn't know gay people existed, and we didn't even know what gay sex would be
Yeah.
like, we were basically doing this really long exploratory process of like having sex with each other, and knowing that what we were doing could get us harmed. And
Mhm.
so it was like very much so like in the cover of night, we were having all these sleepovers, and we were
Right.
figuring this out like one step at a time without any representation, which is like,
That's incredible,
it's kind
honestly.
of interesting. Like you think about like straight people actually have porn, like, and not that porn is a great representation of
There's
sex,
some kind
but
of framework
they
to just navigate things.
exactly. Yes, and I also think porn is most oftentimes a really bad example of pleasure, but in some ways it was really nice because this person and I got to search for pleasure without any framework.
Mm.
And so then I didn't have the language of it, language about being queer until I went to college and then saw all these queer people with their partners finally
Mhm.
out of Ohio. And I was like, oh my
That's
God,
what it
I'm
is.
fucking gay. Yeah. And then it was like everything just happened so fast, my whole world opened.
Mm,
But the cool part about women in gender studies was it might have taught me about it taught me both sides of me. Like it taught me about my queerness and it gave me access to that language, but it also taught to me about like my it taught me about my own biases.
mm,
Like that I had grown up not seeing so many different kinds of people. And so I had, whether I liked it or not, I had a lot of internalized homophobia, internalized misogyny, definitely racism, like all of these things that were
mhm.
just, I didn't even realize it, but they were ingrained in my
Yeah,
being. And so getting to undo those, seeing your place in a system, I think that's actual, like the work is decolonizing
yeah.
because you're not supposed to even know that you're not seeing
Mhm,
things. You know, whiteness is set up in this way, and straightness is set up in this way, and patriarchy is set up in this way as to be invisible to the people participating in.
mhm, mhm.
And everything else is meant to look like an aberration and a choice.
Right, right.
And when you realize that you're also choosing to participate in toxic whiteness, or you're choosing to participate in patriarchy, like then you can remove yourself from that system or at least acknowledge your privilege inside of it so you can be better to people around you.
Mhm.
And so learning about yourself is not just like, oh, I'm queer and now I have access to the language. It's, and now I'm having better, richer, deeper connections with more people because I'm not so
Mhm,
self-focused because of my own internalized patriarchal whiteness.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's really taught to us as, like, the default, which is so funny because I feel
Hmm.
like not funny, but there's so many people that right now are like, "Don't call me cisgender, don't call me that, that's a slur." It's like, bro, literally, it's just like it means you align with the body you were born in, like, it's
Hmm.
not that big of a deal, but they're like, "Oh, just call me a woman. I'm not a cis woman, I'm just a woman." And it's like, you're just not seeing that. It's like, zoom out. There's so
Hmm.
much there. You don't have to just live in this tiny little box of the things. There's so much out there. There's so much more language and identity things and just like just ways of life. And people are so like tunnel vision.
You can see them getting uncomfortable too because the phrase that I hear most from like cishet white folks right now is that everything's about identity
Yeah.
politics. And then you ask them like, well, you ask them questions about them and they don't know the answer or they'll say something like, I'm just me.
Yeah.
And
No
the
self-awareness.
fact no self-awareness and they don't understand. They think that they're benefiting from the system and in so many ways they are, but they've actually been separated from self too
Mm.
because the only identity they have is being a cis woman. And the only identity they have is being a white girl inside of a
Mhm.
patriarchy. And you're like, no, you are more than
Yeah.
that. And so when you're looking at all these people and you're angry at them for developing their sense of self,
Mhm.
ask yourself why.
Right.
Why are you mad someone else has an identity?
Yeah. Like, is it just some deep-rooted envy you're feeling? Like, and if you're feeling,
Mhm.
explore it. Stop
Mhm.
pushing that on projecting that on other people. It's really unfortunate because there's just so many people that don't wanna question things, they don't wanna learn, and I think that's one of the best things that I gained from studying gender and queer theory and feminist theory and all that was there's constant reprogramming that we need to do. Like I've
Mhm.
been very aware and like I'm on it with literally everything having to do with like identity politics and culture and literally everything. I'm like, what's the newest language? What's the best way to validate this? And I'm always checking in with myself if I have a little just ping of resistance to something. I'm like,
Mhm.
"Ooh, what's that? What is that? I don't like that. Let's figure out where the fuck that is, clean it up, and move it out." And I'm comfortable with that uncomfortable feeling, and I'm comfortable with
Yes.
the unlearning because I know it's doesn't make me a bad person. It's natural, and it's something I'm gonna have to do forever. And so many people are so reluctant to even just explore that. They just immediately go like, I don't like it. Don't tell me that I don't know something. I don't want to admit that I don't know something. And it makes me feel yucky. So just remove anything that makes me look at myself.
Mhm. I like what you said. I like the idea of being comfortable with the unlearning. I think you're totally right. I think we're raised in a society that says like you need to be right or you should feel humiliated.
Mhm.
And there is such a massive world around us that it would be ridiculous to assume that we know everything about it all the time. So then taking away this like apparatus inside of us that is constantly humiliated when we're not correct, if you can get rid of that thing, you'll still feel the pangs every once in a while.
Yeah.
Like, a good example is I've I did the cover of the Global Down Syndrome
Mhm.
magazine. And before I did their interview, I realized like a lot of my language was incorrect.
Mm.
So I was like going and I was having these conversations with a friend who also does work with them, and we were like, is it differently abled? Is it disabled? Is it handicapped? We were like going over
Mhm.
all these terms and being like, well, the
What's the most up to date, appropriate? Yeah.
yes. And you, of course, then you're finding different sources. But the fact of the matter is, in doing the work to find the term
Mhm.
that was most respectful to that community, we learned a bunch more. And then we didn't hurt anybody's feelings when we did the interview and when we did the cover of the magazine. And so it's actually like if you can look at life as this project,
Mhm.
this constant project of growth, it's so much more enriching than looking at life as a series of humiliations in your fight to be the most right when you die.
Mhm. Absolutely. It's so interesting too because, like, if the focus and the priority for people is more so to just learn new things so that you can make other people feel less uncomfortable, like, what
Mhm,
is the harm in that, and why is that such a difficult thing to do? Like, if somebody's
mhm.
like, "Why do I have to change my language, and why do I have to yada yada?" Like, because you have a better chance at not making people feel like shit. Like, why
Yeah.
would you not? What is holding would you rather do something that you know has a high probability of hurting somebody, even if it's just one person? Why not go with the thing that you know for sure isn't gonna hurt anybody? Like, it's
Well, and if you don't want to fix your language, if it's more important to you to keep that language and so you don't inconvenience yourself at the risk of hurting
Mhm,
others, then you have to allow the people around you to identify that
mhm.
and say, okay, well, you are a type of person who like refers to themselves as a grammar Nazi, and so my identity isn't important to you. Well, then I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And that's actually when they're like, you see the entitlement come out, or they're
Mhm,
like, well, I didn't. I still want you in my orbit. They still want to control the interaction, but you're like, no, I'm not interested at all. And so now I'm getting to a point, especially with
mhm,
pronouns, where I'll give people an opportunity to respect who I
mm,
am. And then when I realize that that's not going to happen for them, I've just started to pull myself out of those
mhm,
relationships. And it doesn't have to be forever. Like I think when you're talking, I talk to a lot of queer kids that are asking this about family.
mhm,
If family loves you, they're gonna be for you at the they're gonna be there for you at the other side of the tunnel. But if they can't respect who you are, you don't need them in your life in this format.
mhm, mhm,
And so if they need a little bit more time to grow, if they need a little bit more time to get comfortable with respecting who you are,
mhm.
you actually owe it to yourself to separate yourself from that situation
Absolutely.
until they're ready.
'Cause sometimes it may take, you know, a week, it may take months, it may take years, but
Hmm.
I mean, I personally have experienced this. I know a lot of people where their families were not accepting about certain parts of their identity when they came out, and years later, through different experiences, different conversations, whatever, they slowly came around and had time to adjust their views, their beliefs, how they operate, how they process human existence. And
Hmm.
I mean, when that time comes, it's beautiful, but I've definitely had that with people where I'm like, if you don't want to get with it, like you're not going to be in my life. So that's the choice here isn't between am I going to be gay or not? Am I going to be non-binary or not? Am I going to be this or not or that or not?
Hmm.
That's not the choice. It already is what it is. The choice is are you going to get with it and be part of my life or not? And
Yeah.
can you accept that? Can you sit with that? Can you go to sleep at night knowing, yeah, I made the right decision by, pushing my child away? That's on them at the
Oof.
end of the day.
I agree. I agree. That's their own if they're comfortable with it. That's a shame I personally could not sit with.
Oh no, God.
But that's, that's it's a different existence.
Yeah. I think one thing that I get asked a lot and I think is really important too is kids who are or adults even who are coming out and they worry about how their loved one is going to respond. And a lot of times it's not the response you're hoping for, not like the magical, "Oh my god, yeah, love it. Great.
Mhm.
Like no big deal. What's like let me meet your partner, whatever." That's kind of an anomaly to happen. I feel like it's getting a bit better these
Yeah.
days. But I think it's really important to note that even if your family or whoever is not immediately accepting, there's so much hope and people really do come
Mhm.
around. I feel like more come around than not with time.
I think you're right about that. I think unless there's some kind of like major religious
Yeah.
wall in the way, oftentimes you do see people grow. And I mean the thing that is also true, I have to remember this all the time, is that we are in more progressive communities.
Mhm.
Like queer communities, they have they have more diversity. Like there are more people of color, there are different religions inside of queerness, there are different types of people, and the gender spectrum is vast. And so you actually have a lot of people that are coming from the margins together and sharing
Mhm.
ideas. Whereas when you're in the center, the only thing that you're hearing is propaganda to keep you happy in the center.
Yeah. So you don't want
And
to figure
being in the
out.
center, being happy there means you don't want to go into the
Mhm.
margins. So all the propaganda you're receiving is don't go past the fence. They're miserable past the fence.
Mhm.
And so then when someone tells you like, okay, well, I'm moving my apartment to the across the fence, there I do think that they're like talking about my own mom was the initially when I came out to my mom, I interpreted her response as icy.
Mhm.
And then when we talked about it later, years later, she was like, I wasn't disappointed in you for being gay. I was in that moment that you said that to me, I was reimagining your entire life. And I was thinking about how much different it was going to be
Mhm.
and how much harder.
Right. I've heard that
And
same
and that's fair
thing.
to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been told like, well, those gay people, they have really hard lives and they can't have their own children and they get bullied all the time. And once again, it's like across the fence, it's so much harder across the fence. And so then once I was like waving to her and being like, look at all my friends on this side of the fence. Look how happy I am
Mhm.
here. We can have children. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Like once she realized that I could be happy
Mhm.
in the margins, she was completely fine with everything.
Mhm.
And so that's an adjustment period that we do owe to people a little
I
bit if we want to
agree.
keep them around.
Yeah. I mean, you can't expect people to unlearn and undo a lifetime of worldviews and belief systems in a second. It takes a minute. It takes a minute to process that
Correct.
and see like, okay, my person or my child is they're okay and their life is going to be
Yeah.
okay and like I didn't fail as a parent because of this. Like everything's chill. They can still be happy and successful and live a fulfilled life and their life is likely way more fulfilling by living authentically versus not, so
Oh,
I should be
yes.
psyched for them.
Well, and I don't know about you, but I would not trade being gay for the
You
whole
couldn't pay
fucking
me. You
world.
could not
No, you
fucking pay
could
me.
not pay me. There's not enough money. Like, I actually think the tables are turning a little bit, where I think the whole gay community is having conversations where, like, how can we send money to our refugee sisters, aka straight
I
women?
know. I
Like,
know.
how do we get them out of there?
It's so unfortunate. I was talking to my last guest about this because she made a whole album called, or an EP called Songs for Women,
Mhm.
and
Cool.
she's incredible. Like she writes for like all the biggest pop stars and musicians, and like she's fucking killing it. And she's very much surrounded by a lot of men in the music industry as well.
Mhm.
and all the women that like her tend to be straight women. And so she hears, and I hear this stuff all the time of like the complaints and the drama from both sides. And I'm like, what are you fucking guys doing? What are you guys doing to
Mhm.
each other? Like, men are doing weird shit that's making women feel crazy. And then the girls
Weird
are
shit.
playing crazy games because they're used to guys
Uh-huh.
doing weird shit and they're trying to like cope. And I'm like, it doesn't need to be like this.
I wrote that single Bad Man. I A big inspiration for Bad Man was, like, a conversation for, I say, women and femmes
Mhm.
to it was like this Pied Piper song was the idea of telling a women and femme audience there are versions of masculinity that are just as fun and just as exciting and just as horny and so much less toxic.
Mhm.
When you can experience that over here with the
Come
queers,
join the dark side. It's nice.
come. It's so much better over here. It's so much more fun. We're having such a nice time. And I do like I'm telling you, I think that they all think that they're like lucky not to be gay, and I'm like, no, no, no. Sweeties, we are
Yeah.
praying for y'all.
Like, to be fair, we have our own difficulties and dramas because women are chaotic and, like, there's some wild shit, and we have much more deep, complex emotional bandwidth than I
Hmm.
think men traditionally do. So shit can get crazy.
You're talking about a richness of
Yeah,
love.
but I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm like, it keeps things interesting. It's like a little spice. It's
Yeah,
nice.
it's more, when people, when they tell you that, okay, you've been through a million breakups, your first breakup with a girl is the worst thing that's ever happened to you,
My
which
first
let's just
relationship was a girl, and that breakup traumatized me for life.
yo,
Like,
absolutely
what?
same. And mainly, actually, I will say all of them afterwards. Like any woman I've ever broken up with, I've been like, I mean, I I'm gonna change the language here to be inclusive to all my partners. Any queer person
Mhm.
I've broken up with has ended my world. But the reason that they were able to end my world is because I think women and trans people are so vast.
Mhm. There's a deeper
Like they have,
connection and more complex connections and more connection
yes.
points that happen versus just
Hmm.
like, "I think you're hot," and, like, "I'm supposed to like you."
Yes, I think you're hot. I'm supposed to like you, and I know that I'm supposed to have kids.
Yeah.
Like, no, no, no. We're like the way that she sips her
Yeah.
coffee makes me want to die. Like, it's so fucking
Yeah.
intense. I don't wish queer breakups on anyone.
It's truly a whole other level of, like, just dramatic, deep, poetic, just oh
Yes.
my god. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know pain
I hope
until you've done
I
it.
hope I never
Period.
have to experience that again. I'm like, my I've been through enough, and with my girlfriend, I'm like, "You're not fucking going anywhere because 'cause I've been through
Uh-uh.
enough shit, like, you're stuck."
No, I tell my gal that all the time. Like, you think you're going
Yeah,
somewhere?
fuck no.
You think I'm about to do that
No.
again? You're out of your fucking mind.
I'm I'm exhausted. I'm tapped out. I've had enough.
Yeah.
I know.
Whatever problems we have, guess what, bitch? We're going to
Yeah.
therapy because you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yep. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh, the trauma. The trauma. Jesus.
How long have you been with your partner?
It is our 4-year anniversary in 2 weeks.
Ah,
I know. And before this, I had never even hit, like, 1 year in a healthy way. It was always, like, up
wow.
and down, like, the breakup roller coaster of, like, a month, and then a month later, you break up, and then you get back together and just, like, ride the toxic train. I did
Yeah.
that for almost a year prior, but no.
I've done a couple 4-year
Oh my
relationships.
god.
Um, I've done a couple 2-year relationships, a 3-year relationship. Oh, wow.
Oh,
I've
wow.
I've been
Like, long term.
I've been in business since I was 14. I like truly I think there was a 6-month period. And 6 months is the longest I've ever gone
Oh my
without being
god,
in a
okay, serial
relationship.
monogamous. Got it, got it, got
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, monogamous is,
it. Ish. Ish.
not too much
Yeah.
information for our audience, but Yeah,
Par
they're serial
partnered,
tried monogamous.
partnered,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Serially
yeah.
partnered.
Yes!
That I think that
That
works.
one.
That one works. Yeah, I had a lot of I was like a serial 2.5 monther, you know? I'd
Mhm.
bounce between those, and I'm like, "This is amazing. I love her. This is it. Just kidding. I'm fucking out of there."
What happens? I've always kind of wanted to know, like, what happens at that 2-month point where you're like, "I'm out?"
People's, whole mask starts coming off.
Mhm,
Everyone's on their best behavior for the first month, and you're also blinded by all the chemistry and, like, just a
mhm.
horniness of a new relationship. But then once things start to slowly, like, settle a little bit, people get a little more comfortable, the mask starts coming off, you start seeing, "Okay, that's really, like, a big red flag. I don't like that. The way they, I don't know, fold their clothes makes me wanna die." Whatever it is, you start
What's
seeing
your sign?
I'm a Libra.
Libra!
It's my Capricorn moon
Wow.
that's like this, though.
I was gonna say because I was in that moment when I heard the laundry thing, I was like, "We're getting some Virgo energy."
I know, it's very much Virgo, but no, it's my Cap moon. She's controlling and very
Wow.
particular. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I don't necessarily find that unhealthy because I think that my brain is like, "Ooh, a problem? Might as well buckle up."
But that's the thing is, like, sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's like, "Ooh, problem solving. I like this."
Yeah, yeah.
When it's
Certainly.
like a escape room, but I don't want to escape
Mhm.
it. I just want to solve all the puzzles. That's fun. Stimulating.
Mhm. Yeah, now I don't want that.
Yeah.
Like, now that you and I are
Yeah.
elderly,
We're
I don't
old white. Do you identify as a lesbian? Actually, I didn't even ask you that. I don't know if you
I
identify.
I prefer dyke.
I love
I think
dyke.
because I find dyke more trans friendly,
Mhm.
and I think it's a harsher word in a way that I'm like, yeah, fuck
Yeah.
you, dyke, as in fuck you.
I like
You know what I'm
I
saying?
like dyke a lot. I use dyke often. I
Hmm.
also really love faggot because it feels like,
Ooh,
"Ooh, I love faggot."
wow, that's fun. I've not heard
I
that.
just started,
Baguette.
like, rocking with it. I'm sure someone else came up with it, but it just feels right. But I love lesbian
Dang.
because I think I must have been, like, 16 when I heard the term owl, an old wise lesbian, and I'm like, "That's me. I'm at the
I
age."
love the term lesbian because I think it's beautiful.
So many people think it's ugly, and I'm like, "What's wrong with you?"
What are you talking about? What kind of sick motherfucker would think that was
I
ugly?
don't know, I love it.
If anything, there are. I think lesbian has become such a more inclusive term. Um, I think it's more about energetics for me. Like I think that lesbian, there's like this really beautiful, like golden soft glow to that
Mm,
word for me, and I'm like, no, I've got dirt on my shins. Like I can't explain it. I'm like, no, lesbian is like a
mm.
beautiful heel on a boot, and I'm like dog shit on a
Oh my
cowboy
god.
boot energetically. So I'm kind of referring dyke in that way.
I Dyke just really does hit different. It definitely does. I'm
I think it's the same thing as fag, where you're
mm,
like, yeah, sure, gay, but fag.
yeah,
It's nice to have language that
and only certain people can
uh,
call you that. Like, if
exactly. It's language they can't
yeah,
use. You know what I mean?
somebody
That's
abuses it, I'm like,
nice.
"I'm being hate crimed right now, please stop."
Yeah. Oh,
But if it's
certainly.
like one of the people, I'm like, "Okay," like, yeah.
Well, and I think they don't like it when we use terms like dyke and fag because they feel they do want to be able to control
Oh, you're
language and they do
reclaiming
want to be
it.
able to control. Yes, and we are reclaiming it. And the funny thing is that I have found like the older generation when I referred to myself as a dyke, I've had older women go, "Don't say that. You're beautiful."
Like, I
And
know I
I
and I
I find that fascinating because I'm like, you admitted it. Like for y'all, when you
mm,
were calling someone a dyke as a slur, to you that meant ugly woman.
ooh,
And for me, dyke means like trans person who loves women
mhm,
and trans people and is in queerness and is militant about their love for their community.
mhm,
Like dyke is this like beautiful, strong community term.
mhm.
And they think of it as ugly woman
Ugly,
can't get
useless,
man.
yeah. Ugly,
Yeah.
useless in society, fucking cretin.
Mhm.
That's yeah.
And the answer is, sweethearts, I can get a man. I don't goddamn want ones. Y'all can keep Yeah, man.
Please keep them over there, please. Actually, right
Please.
before we got on, I was on TikTok and there was this person, I believe they're she they vibes. Okay, yeah, they were. So they identify as a lesbian, but they were talking about language, some response to a comment that they had. And they got into how people have largely been using non-binary as like women light, basically like, oh, our women and non-binary employees, and
Mm,
it's just women and people who are perceived to be assigned female at birth, you know, that kind of
mhm,
stuff going on. But then it kind of rolled into this whole thing about language and how the term lesbian has been uh, redefined or in this redefining process.
mhm,
And I've been thinking about this for so long because I hate all the definitions of it right now. I feel like they're really like muddy and not there. Like they're still being workshopped and like badly.
mhm.
Because right now I think the most up to date is non-men loving non-men. And I hate that because it's still centering men. Like why are we that? Like,
Yeah,
what the fuck?
fuck that. I'm sorry. That's gonna be a no for me.
Right. And then there's like what is it? People who like love women and non-binary people, but then that's kind of tricky because what about non-binary people who are, you know, have different like assigned male at birth or are intersex or whatever? I'm like, is that what you mean by that? Because
But that's what's so nice about queer. Like I've been having the same conversation. It's like I love the term queer because the for me, I'm gonna really alienate a male audience right now, but what I don't like is I don't like the the way we've raised men, cis het men
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
patriarchy. I think that they have so much unlearning to do that they're not oftentimes willing to do
Mhm.
that I can't be attracted to
Right.
them. I really feel that way. And I don't feel unattracted to I like all different body
Mhm.
parts. And so when I say I love women and I love femmes, like I love feminine gay
Mhm.
men. I love trans women. I love trans men. I love cis women. I love all of these people because what I think the queerness
Yeah.
is, I really fall in love with brains.
Mhm.
I fell in love with a human being, and then the nice part about loving sex is that if you're in love with a human being's brain, that's their biggest sex
Right.
organ. Then everything else is about finding that pleasure between two people.
Mhm.
The only brain I'm not interested in is one that is benefiting entirely from
Right.
patriarchy, and that's just not sexy to me at all.
Right. Right. I completely agree. And I wish there was a way to put that in a nice, concise definition for people.
I'm queer and I don't like cis men.
Right. I mean, that's concise, but I mean, just, like, having it in a way of,
Mhm.
like, I don't know.
No,
You
I
know what
know
I
what
mean?
you're saying.
I don't even wanna have to mention cis men is what I'm saying.
I completely agree. I think you're totally right. I've been trying to think about the linguistic alternatives to not male as
Yeah,
well.
without mentioning it's like, we need more language, wherever the, like, gender theorists are out there, like, can we get some better, like, more language options? I'd love that.
I actually feel like it's an all hands on deck situation. Like I think that us having these conversations are important
Mhm.
because it puts this exact little conundrum in a bunch of people's
Mhm.
brains. And so we can all think about it and all offer alternatives because I can't tell you how little I think about cishet men.
Mhm.
And so then when I'm describing the people I'm attracted to as not male, it feels so fucking off.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's just, like, centering that, which feels just fucking weird.
There's a nice thing about femme and masc
Mhm.
that feel um, sexless in the term of what Americans
Mm.
call gender, like sex, but sex is in body parts, right?
Yeah.
It feels sexist. Masc and femme is about energetics to
Mhm.
me, and it's queer.
Mhm.
And so I am attracted to mascs and femmes.
Mhm.
And I think in saying masc and femme instead of saying men and women,
Right.
I'm acknowledging an entire spectrum of people
Mm. I like
in a queer lexicon
that, right.
because straight people are not saying masc or femme.
Right. Right. That's a very good point. I like.
And I think that if we think about gender in these like playful ways of like, I like masc and femme anyway, because they are not about body parts. They are about energetics. Like, you know, that beautiful, like lithe gay man that I'm imagining right
Mhm.
now, like I would identify him as a femme,
Mhm.
right? In my brain,
Mhm.
this example person. And at the same time, like the butchest dyke I've ever met is a mask to
Right.
me. And we're not talking once again about privates. We're talking about
Yeah.
energetics.
I think
So maybe we're closer with that kind of language.
yeah, no, I like that a lot. That seems to because people really like even in the queer community really fight back when you're using like I see so many lesbians being like, no, lesbian means woman loving woman, and that's cisgender women love. And I'm like,
Yo, that's
yeah,
turf
I was like,
shit.
get the
Fuck
turf
y'all.
shit out of here, first of all. Like that's
Mhm.
ugly. But
That's ugly. You look like shit.
it's so I just can't. I'm
Being a turf makes you the ugliest person on the planet. That's a fact.
literally it makes you ugly and have like the IQ of a rotten sandwich. It's fucking gross.
Yes,
It's
it puts skin tags on your pupils. That's what being a turf
embarrassing.
does. Like, watch the hell out, y'all.
Skin tags on your people. Nasty. I really don't like that. Wow. I
Yeah.
really don't like that. Oh,
You're welcome.
God.
You're gonna think about that for a long time, and so will the
Unfortunately,
turfs.
unfortunately, I am, but thank you. Okay, so we cannot talk about
Mhm,
specific things relating
mhm,
to TV and film because there is a strike going on, which shout out to everybody who's been on strike. It's been too long, honestly. It's shocking. So we're gonna not mention things that we don't want to mention here,
mhm,
but I think it's really important to address the representation that comes from certain characters that certain people may play on certain shows and films.
mhm.
Um,
Yes.
and I think just like your experience in college, having this new language and putting kind of a, not a face to a name, but just putting an experience to a word or an experience to just understanding yourself and being able to express that and how important it is to have access to those things that can really help you identify yourself. It's so important and a character that exists on a show of some sort um who is non-binary
Uh-huh.
was I believe one of the first important ones out
Yes, I
there.
think the first on network.
Yeah, which is so major. So I'm wondering like did you have a similar experience growing up at all seeing or maybe even after you came out but seeing yourself represented in media? Do you have an actor or even somebody in music that you're like, yeah, that makes me feel like I can be me?
I th my answer is a little complicated. I think that I feel a lot of like this is going to sound very religious, I think, maybe, but I'm going to say it's spiritual. I think that I feel very purpose driven.
Mhm.
And I think that I have spent a lot of my life um, creating things that I did not see. So um, trying to find words for the feelings or words for the acts or words for the ways that I was loving people
Mhm.
and then building representation.
Right.
And so I'm lucky because in some ways, the gender studies and having access to all these words helped me build representation where there actually wasn't.
Mm.
But I wasn't growing up in a time where there was a lot of representation on
Yeah.
TV.
We had
And
like Ellen and
um,
what, Rosie O'Donnell? Like,
yeah, and I remember, you know, clocking Ellen DeGeneres and having this like knowing who Ellen was somehow, knowing that Ellen and I were the same
mm,
before I knew that Ellen was gay.
right.
And so that I remember having that experience, but I don't remember watching TV and being like, "Oh, there I am." Like I just didn't have that. And so, you know, without being specific at all, where I've been able to in my career fill in a lot of spots that haven't existed yet.
Mhm.
And it's not that being non-binary didn't exist, but it's that we had so few of us on the TV space or in the writing space or in the music space, whatever, that when I've gotten to feel these thoughts, it has been important. It has had an impact. And what I'll say is every time a queer person joins that space, every time there's a queer person on TV, every time there's a queer person in a writing room, every time there's a queer person that makes a song,
Mhm.
all of those things, they add to this beautiful spectrum of being
Mhm.
because we're not a monolith. And so early on in my career, I've been placed in a position to be one of the like prime speakers of this quote unquote monolith.
Mhm.
And I think what we're realizing now is that we have a community where it really is the more the merrier.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited as we go on to be passing off this torch so that we have more and more representatives because our community doesn't all look like me.
Mhm.
And I'm so proud that I've been able to reach as many people as I have and be able to showcase this identity in this format. And I'm so much more excited that it's opened up doors for other people to come in and build out our understanding of what being non-binary and trans looks like.
Mhm. That's super impactful, and even just researching for this, I was like, "Let me just take a gander on TikTok." You have, like, the fan videos, the slow
Yeah.
motion zoom ins on, like, smiles. I'm like, "Oh, this is a thing, this is a thing," but of course it's a thing
Mhm.
when you see somebody, I mean, obviously, like, you're amazing, but when you see somebody that
Thank you.
is representing
Mhm.
you or your identity in a different way, it just hits so different to feel seen on that level and feel like
Mhm.
your identity and who you are is being reflected back to you in some way that it
Mhm.
really just sparks a whole different type of connection, which is amazing. But actually, it might be, I'm curious about this too. Going from, you know, being a writer and doing other things to having this massive like level of, I don't
Mhm.
know, attention for a certain character you played. Was there any difficulty around having that level of perception? Because I feel like as a queer person, as somebody who walks in any type of margins of the world, sometimes perception can feel overwhelming and sometimes dangerous. And then other
Oh,
times
yes.
really healing and beautiful and you feel seen. So I don't know how did that.
It is scary. It's scary because I think we live um, in a time period where we expect people not to make
Mhm.
mistakes, and I'm learning just like my audience is. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying so hard to make sure that all my language is correct and inclusive, especially when you're thrown into a spokesperson
Yeah.
position. I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. But like I was a kid once, you know what I mean? Like I've made dumb jokes and said stupid shit and I've hurt people's feelings and I've had privilege that was unchecked and I've had a bunch of stupid fucking ideas that I thought needed to be said out
Mhm.
loud. And what I won't ever do to my audience is lie about that. I'm not pretending to be perfect. My role as a spokesperson is to say, I did a lot of work to figure out who I am. And I'm doing a lot of work to figure out how I can aid my community.
Mhm.
And none of it has been perfect. And I have made so many mistakes along the way. And I love you just the way you are. And if you want to come here and learn with me, if you want to come here and find a space where you can be exactly yourself, that's my big gay umbrella. That's what I'm offering, an audience. And I have a lot of young queer
Mhm.
fans, and I think we forget because we're in these liberal bubbles that kids are growing up still without access to the language and without
Right.
access to the representation, and we have to give those kids the space to ask dumb fucking questions
Mhm.
and to be scared and to to grow and to change because we had that space and we had that space off the internet.
Mhm. And
And
we're
so
still
that's
operating like, we're still navigating those spaces. We're still learning. We
absolutely.
just have we got a few extra years on them under our
Yeah.
belts.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so bad for those kids because there's so much growth that I got to do in
Yeah.
private. And they're trying to have a nice time in a world that is like, you'd be convinced if you were an alien that we only lived virtual
Mhm.
lives. There's just so much less of our life is spent with people, it
Yeah.
seems. And so, you and I talking about going to women and gender studies and decolonizing our brain, like a lot of those kids are trying to do that online in a very public way.
They're
And
sharing
you
their
just
ideas on TikTok and then getting ripped down for it and saying the wrong words
yes.
and getting bullied for saying
Mhm.
the wrong thing, but it's
And a lot of people seem really excited to bully other people about not having all the knowledge right
yeah.
away. And I find that really boring. And so in some ways, I really would love to like take a step back and never be on the internet at all.
Mhm.
But in other ways, I do actually feel this really like special purpose in my understanding of God is like if I live a life that through my trial and error and through my expression of joy and through the way I love people and understand myself, if I can live that life in a way that makes it much easier for queer people after me,
Mhm.
that will have been a life worth living.
That's honestly a beautiful note to end that on. I'm like, don't say anything else because that was perfect and
Okay.
beautiful. Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's a very solid purpose. Damn. Well, shit. Well, just kidding. I have one more question for you because I ask
Yes, good. I'm gonna fuck it up.
I ask everybody this one. So what is your dream creative zone? There are zero rules. Physics doesn't matter. You can be under the water, on the moon. What is your dream room space look like that you would love to just do your thing?
Oh, I would like to be in the mountains
Mm.
next to a creek. It looks like North Carolina in my brain. And there is a cabin up there and it is all wood and it's filled with musical instruments and all my friends can get there by helicopter and it's free to fly the helicopters because this is a dream scenario and they come to my
They can
house
teleport if
and we
you
play
want.
music together. Yeah, they can teleport. It's a dream. You're right. They can teleport over and we are away from the rest of the world and we get to have our little fireplace and play our instruments. And that is, to me, that would be prime happiness. And you know what? I live in a house right now that is basically an old
Mm.
cabin. It was built in 1911
Oh wow.
and it's got a working fireplace and everything is wood and brick and it's just in the middle of
It's
LA.
giving cabin for sure.
It's giving cabin and I this is the happiest place I've ever
Mm.
lived. So, yeah, I guess this but in the
Next to
mountains
a creek.
next to a
I
creek.
love that with a teleporting helicopter pad
Yes, for
for
free.
free.
For free.
Beautiful. And any last words of advice for anyone who may be listening, just going through their own identity journey?
It's it's so much more fun. It's so much more fun here. I promise. There's so many alternate universes that you can live in. And if you don't explore at least a few of them, you'll have wasted your time.
Period. Yep. That's that. Awesome.
Mhm. Thank you for having me.
Thank-
I've had such a lovely
Yeah,
time.
thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. This was awesome. I like never get to talk to people who've studied gender theory too. So I'm like, yay.
Oh, how
Yeah.
refreshing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.